Welcome to Forest Chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we're talking with Richard Stein about being a photographer. Richard has been a long-time amateur photographer and at some times has also been employed as a photographer. Welcome to Forest Chat, Richard.
Well, thank you very much again for having me here, Paul. I'm delighted to speak to you and to the people who are listening.
Richard, what is the photography that you've been involved in?
The best way to describe what my photography is a long progression from high school, university, general practice, change to a trade, and then retirement. It's a long period of, as I say, amateur photography, interspersed with professional photography, interspersed with trade, and now back into the amateur photography.
Coming full cycle.
I think it is. It's a full cycle, though, that you get to see a lot of places on. I've been in newspapers, I've been in magazines, I've been in yearbooks, I've been in wedding photography, studio photography, product photography, and the photographic trade across a shop counter.
So when you say trade, you're meaning working in a retail outlet?
Exactly so. I had the greatest good fortune to know a man who owned a photography shop, and when I retired out of practice, he offered me a job working retail in his photography shop. I had already worked retail in Perth in the 1960s, so I knew that the way a counter works. And for the last joyous 7 years of my working life, I was able to work in the photography trade at a counter in a shop, talking to people. It was the talking that made it worthwhile.
Everything is better when it's shared, isn't it?
It is. And it's wonderful when somebody will talk to you and actually listen to you. The conversation on a subject like photography with somebody who wants to know is absolutely wonderful.
Let's go back in your journey and we'll reflect back from being on the other side of that trade counter. Where did your photography journey start? With what types of subjects and equipment?
Best to think of it as what happened to me. 16 years old, school holidays. The editor of a local newspaper in Quesnel, British Columbia said, "Do you want to work for the newspaper?" Yeah, I'll work for the newspaper. And my mind had it that I was probably going to be selling on the street corners or sweeping up the shop. Not a bit. First day I walked into the place, he pointed me to the dark room, said, "They'll teach you how to develop films in there," closed the door. And in the little dark red world of the dark room, the photographer there showed me how to load cameras, how to take pictures, how to develop pictures, how to print them, and how to do it on the day-to-day quick basis that a newspaper requires. Now, the Caribou Observer wasn't quite a day-to-day newspaper, it was a weekly, but it still had to gather a lot of photographic information in the 1960s to put onto its pages. And there's nothing that teaches you faster than somebody handing you a Rolleiflex and pointing you out the door and saying, "Go take a picture of the new hospital. And while you're there, write it up." At 16, you don't know that you can't do it, so you go out and you do it. I didn't know how exciting it was till I started to do it. Well, in the next few years, I encountered a school that had a school yearbook. Not just a little few pages that they have, but a nationally credited, contested yearbook that everybody had to go into. And we had a school darkroom and people who were keen to do it. So we had to produce high quality photographs of the students, of the activities of the school, the area, etc., like that, to a national standard. And if you're put to it, you can do it. Reel forward. University of Western Australia had the Pelican newspaper. And again, the dear old Rolleiflex cameras came out and we took all sorts of student pictures around the campus. In these things, you're taking pictures for someone else. So you actually have to produce the thing that they want to see, the illustration, the event, the person. In most cases, you're not producing art. You're producing timely illustration, which is what I learned to do. And that actually, as it turned out to be pretty much the only thing I'm good at. Art, I'm not good at. I can't put large prints on a wall and expect people to buy them, but I can illustrate writing, I can illustrate products, I can illustrate the joy of weddings, etc., like that. Perth in Western Australia had a wonderful selection of shops in the 1960s and studios. In some cases, they were attached. There would be a full-size studio, a wedding studio, and a retail shop that were all in the one. Well, I wandered into one, asked for a job, got it. Thank you very much. And for my entire university career, I was employed on weekends in the photography business and during the university holidays. The joy of it, of course, is during the university holidays, it was photographing things that were sometimes in the studio or helping out with weddings or dealing with people across a retail counter with all the equipment. And it teaches you how to A, sell equipment, B, how to use equipment, C, how to talk to people, and D, how to listen to people when they talk to you about what they want. So there we go. All the time, you're adding a little bit more of experience in photography. You're going to a wedding as the assistant and watching what the photographer does. You're watching what the bride and groom do and all the guests do, etc. You're going into a studio and watch what happens when the photographer photographs a bride and groom in a studio or photographs products in a studio, fashions, etc. You already know how to go out and do a newspaper grip and grin, where somebody hands over a check and they both look at you and you hit them with a flashbulb. But the finer points of photography you learn as you go along, looking at what happens in the studio, out in the field, in the wedding. The fact that the wedding studio was connected to a shop meant that the people looking at the wedding photographs, this is the 1960s, remember, when you had to come in and look at paper photographs. The people looking at the photographs, wanting to buy the albums of the weddings, wanting to buy the pictures, had a particular desire to see things themselves, the bride, the groom, the joy, the church, and you learned what people want to see. You learned what the photographers had to provide. It's great, great experience when you can see it happening in front of you, be a part of it, but not be terribly responsible for everything about it.
Being in that environment where you've got multiple facets, so you've got on-site, off-site, and the access to equipment, the hands-on ability to actually be there and play with all of that is just an incredible space to be in.
It is. Working in the shop gives you a chance to see all the things that are available at the time. And this is, I say, the late 1960s, so it was film photography. But it was film photography in all different sizes. Very tiny, regular 35 mil, bigger, 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 right up to the large studio cameras. Now, the joy of seeing all the goods is that you either can reject 90% of them as being unsuitable for your own thing, or worse, you want to buy 90% of them. You sit there and you sell yourself on, I want this, I need this, I could use this, I'll do this. And sometimes you are a better salesman than you are a customer. You don't realize that you're getting yourself into an immense amount of equipment, complexity, expense, changeover, and you're continually doing it to yourself. Now, a cynical thing to say that if you're a salesman in a photography store, you're trying to sell goods to other people. And the more you sell, the happier the boss and the accountant are. But you sometimes have to remember you're selling it to yourself, and maybe you shouldn't buy it from yourself. Maybe you should use the stuff you've got and not sell yourself new stuff. Eventually, I came to that realization. I started to use up the goods I had, the cameras and the equipment, and I got better as I used things more.
That familiarity is an incredible way to improve your skills, isn't it?
It is. You have to continuously practice and do something. It's like a tennis player. He's not going to hit the winning shot the third time he hits it with the racket. It's going to be the 300th time or the 3,000th or the 30,000th time that he hits that ball with the racket. It's going to win him some recognition. When you're working with photography, in the days that I started, it was a very expensive thing to cycle through the film, cycle through the chemicals, cycle through the paper, and cycle through the mounting and the finishing of the photography to get a good product. Out of a roll of 36 pictures, the standard 35 millimeter roll, we really only reckoned on one fabulous picture, the hero shot, two others on either side of it, which were very, very good. And the rest were something you could file away because they weren't going to be necessary. And you can see that in the case of photography studios. They might have a higher hit rate. They might get 3 heroes out of 36 and a few more on either side. But a great deal of it is gone, not really doing what it wants to do. In the darkroom, when we started processing things, we could narrow down the amount of excess material we used by only working with the hero images and the great images. We were still using a lot of material to get the exposure right, get the tone right, get everything right about it, and throwing rejects into the bin. But you narrow it down after a while to the point where you can go in and come out in a half an hour with what you wanted, and it looks pretty good, and you haven't used up too much. You do, unfortunately, and we did, use up a lot of water to do it. Film photography, chemical photography in those days used up a lot of the resource like that. But these things gradually melted down. We got less water usage, less film usage, less paper usage, until one day somebody decided to do it electrically, the digital camera. That has a longer history than people think. That goes back into the 1970s, but it became a real valuable and usable asset in the 1990s. I didn't come to it myself till 2007. I had so many film cameras and was so used to doing the film photography that I never even thought of doing it. Talk about being purblind. Talk about having the blinkers on your eyes. I carried on with wedding photography. I carried on with event photography, studio photography, with large cameras, and enjoyed using them when I could have switched to the digital system a lot sooner than I did. I wonder if your readers can remember the motion picture from, I think, Walt Disney about the Pirates of the Caribbean. You might remember one scene in the motion picture where Captain Jack Sparrow, the pirate hero, is stuck in a boat that is sinking. It's a small boat, and it's got a mast and a sail, and it's heading towards the shore, but it's sinking. It's physically sinking. And as it's sinking, he's crawling up farther and farther in the boat, eventually getting up on the mast and shinnying up the mast as hard as he can as the boat sinks under him. But just as the boat finally hits the water and he cannot go any further, the dock appears and he walks off onto the dock dry-footed. It's the most amazing sequence you've ever seen, and it's hilarious, and it's real life, because in many cases, for a photographer like myself, or for that matter, a person in general practice, that happened to me. I walked off the sinking boat several times. I walked off the sinking boat of general practice onto the photographic trade. I walked off the sinking of the film photography onto digital photography and did it dry-footed. Now
That's amazing that you're able to achieve that.
It's amazing to me that it actually happened.
You've had a good range of experience that you talked about in photography, having done wedding photography and studio photography and product photography. What's the difference between studio photography and product photography?
Oh, well, studio does include product, but studio would also include things like brides and grooms, portraiture, families, animal studio for the people who are very good at it. I never have been, so I don't touch that. But there's a woman here in Perth who is absolutely the best in the world at doing animal photography. Houndstooth Studios is her name. And when I say the best, award-winning international star photography. Okay, you also get into costume societies who want to be recorded, glamour girls, dancers in their costumes, dance troupes, all kinds of things like that, until you get to the point where you come to studio illustration of products. Like I used to illustrate products for the camera shop. When I wrote about them, I had to take a picture that illustrated the bag, the camera, the lens, the things like that. And you have to take a picture that looks better than one that comes out of a catalog. You have to take a picture that looks good to get the person's attention. Latterly, in the last few years, I've concentrated a lot on tabletop photography of my scale models and making what I do myself look real.
And there are some amazing photos of scale models that I've not been able to tell the difference between real and scale. They've been incredible.
When somebody accuses you of not taking a model picture, but going out and taking a real picture and trying to fool them, you know you've just won the prize. When somebody says, "Is that real?" And you say, "Of course it's real," because it is. It might only be real at 5 inches long, but it's real. And you just let it go at that.
Absolutely, yes. It's amazing. You can get into a whole world of trickery, but it's not really trickery. It's really that the subject comes across in a way that purports it to be different to what it actually is.
Oh, yes, there's a whole genre of photography done on miniatures and sets and things like that, professionally and in amateur work, that does exactly as you say. A person sees this wonderful interior of a building, not realizing that they're looking at the wonderful interior of a dollhouse or the wonderful interior of a movie set. I think people who watch the movies sometimes don't realize how many of the wonderful things they see are actually scale model sets that have been put together. Of course, nowadays, a lot of things are done in a computer in the animation section. And unfortunately, in the future, a lot more is going to be done with artificial intelligence to manufacture motion pictures. But the world moves on. You can't make your pictures on a glass plate anymore, as we might have done 100 years ago. You now make them on a different medium and make them in a different way. That's the thing. You have to walk forward with the way the business goes.
That's right, because it'll bring advantages that the outgoing system wasn't able to achieve.
One thing you do have that is constant with all of them is light. The light from the sun, the light from electricity lamps, the light from burning torches, however you get your light. Light is the thing you're playing with and working with, and that doesn't change. You can change it, you can move it, you can learn it, you can modify it, but light is the thing that you can work with, whether it's digital, whether it's analog, however it has been in the whole thing, all the way from the 1830s onwards. Light is the thing that makes it happen. Photography.
Photography is capturing light, isn't it?
Exactly.
Richard, what does it take you to be a photographer that is sometimes a employed photographer?
Well, I have to have a number of characteristics. One, I have to be able to look at things and see them. I'm not trying to be fatuous about that. I have to be able to look at a bride and groom and see them at their best. I have to be able to look at a cup and see it at its best. And then I have to be able to make that cup look its best to somebody else. As I say, I'm an illustrative photographer rather than an artistic one because I'm not gifted in art. But I do look at that thing, see what the light is doing to it, and then capture that effect. Now, I have to be able to work with a number of technical subjects. In the case of photography right now, it's a lot of electrical subjects, electronic subjects. I have to decide how the electronics are going to deal with that subject. I have to decide how the lights that I use are going to deal with the subject, whether the subject's the cup or the bride. Then I actually have to be able to do it the same way each time, like a rifle shooter. He doesn't really care where the rifle barrel shoots or where the sights are, as long as they do the same thing every darn time, because he can make compensation of the rifle barrel and the sight for his target. I want my camera to be able to do the same thing each time with little modifications that I put into it to make it see the thing that I want to see. The toughest thing of all that I've had to do over the last few years is make the camera see what I see. Many years ago, when we had film photography, the camera saw what it was going to see, and the film that came from Mr. Kodak or Mr. Agfa or Mr. Peretz saw what it was going to see, and eventually it showed me what it wanted me to see or what I was going to see. Nowadays, I can go the other direction. I can tell the camera to see the subject the same way that I see that subject. I can set the color, I can set the dark and light, I can set the focus, I can set all kinds of things about it now that were a bit more difficult to do back in the old days. In the old days, you depended on what you got. Now you can actually command what you get.
And you can do that on a photo by photo basis.
You could if you wanted to, but by golly, you don't want to when you're working photographer. You want to have it right and then be able to go bing, 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 bing. Certainly at a wedding, bing, bing, bing is going to be necessary. At a party, an event, any sort of occasion that is fast moving, sitting there looking at the back of your camera to see if you've got it doesn't work. You do have to look at the back of your camera every now and then. And I make a point of looking at it. When I move into a different light area, whatever picture I've taken, I make a quick look to see that I'm coping with that light area. But once you get onto the thingbob, the target, it's repeat, 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 because you're going to have to do it.
And you can't afford to miss the moment when you're at an event like a wedding or...
Well, one of the nicest things at a wedding is the business when the bride and groom kiss. Okay, this happens. They've done all, you down the aisle, all the ceremony, you may kiss and away it goes. And everybody in the church is charged up with electricity when that happens. Yeah, and of course you get the picture of that happening. But the best thing of all is when they've stopped, you call out clearly, "Oh, I missed that. Could you do it again?" And of course, every bride and groom will dutifully do it again. And then comes the real gem, is after they finish the second one, you call out the same thing again. And the whole church erupts in laughter because they know it's a joke. And the charge of electricity that was making everybody nervous, everybody het up, everybody tense and thingbob, disperses instantly, and they're starting to have a good time. And it works every single time. You just disperse that nervous energy that people are tensed up with and let them start to have a good time at that wedding. You can do it with 3 questions, 3 pictures like that.
And you've repeated the question twice.
Yeah. And even if one of them's no good, you've got one good picture of the bride and groom. It draws you back to the old days, when they sent me out, take a picture of the winning basket at the basketball game. And I said, well, how do I know what the winning basket at the basketball game is? How do I know who's going to win? I said, easy peasy, go down, get your camera underneath the basket, look up at the basket, and when somebody comes and throws a ball in the basket, take the picture, right? Okay. Then at the halftime, go round to the other basket and sit under there and take one picture in the other basket. One of the teams is going to win that game, and all baskets look the same. So when you come back to the newspaper office with your one holder of film, which has a picture on either side, you say, we'll develop both of them, and whoever wins, we just print that one. Now, part of the thing of what do you need to do? You have to be able to manage people, to talk to people, to be on the side of the bride and the groom, and sometimes on the side of their parents, but not often. You have to be on the side of the person coming for a portrait, of the family, you have to be on the side of the person who manufactures the object you're taking a picture of, the coffee cup maker. You have to be on his side and want to make his product look the very, very best. When you're on side like that, the people who you're working with pretty well know it. The coffee cup might not, but the manufacturer does. And that's when you get some success.
That's about communicating with them?
Yes, exactly so. A photographer who can't communicate with people, and there are some of them, a photographer who sits back and snipes with a long lens at the bride and the groom, a photographer who doesn't talk to his subject in the studio, a photographer who is much better suited for the technical line of being a, shall we say, an illustrator in a hospital who takes pictures of samples, or a person who is dealing with photomechanical things, a person who doesn't deal with people, who can't deal with people, shouldn't deal with people, he or she should work with something else. Sometimes there are photographers who can't deal with people, but who can do a marvelous job of artistic photography. They have an eye for a landscape, they have an eye for color, they have an eye for something, and they will produce wonderful work, but it will be work in which they do not have to contact the subject, they do not have to empathize with anybody. All they have to do is have it be finished and up on the wall, and people admire it and buy it. And
so they can remove themselves then from that process, like a gallery or something like that.
You're lucky in photography if you can discover who you are, what you are, and what kind of a person you are as you do it, because then you can go into something where you can work with it.
And it's knowing enough about yourself to be able to choose which of those is the most suitable for you.
If you possibly can, yes. Some people go into photography with professional training. There's university, there's technical school, there's specialist art schools that teach people in photography. There's people who learn photography through camera clubs. There's all sorts of other things like that. But if they can learn early on what they're best at doing, like Alex Cearns, the houndstooth lady, she is absolutely brilliant with animals, and they can be anything from a slug on the ground to a percher on a horse. She works with them all, and she loves them all, and they understand it, and they react for her. She's absolutely world class with that. I don't know if she would have been any good taking pictures of you when you were in rally car driving, sitting at the side of a track covered in mud with a long lens and the fear of death on her. Who knows? There are other people who you met in your enjoyments out on the road who are exactly that person. They are the motorsport photographer, and they're prepared to do all the terrible things that motorsport photographers have to do to get that winning shot of the car up in the air and the dirt flying around. I couldn't do that. I don't think Alex could do it. But by their token, they might not be able to come into a studio and make an entire little world on a tabletop or take a product or things like that.
Exactly. Play to your strengths.
Exactly. Find it early if you can, and then work with it for all the time that it will serve you. You don't have to do one thing only all the time. You can change. You can find that you have changed too. Things do change for people. And once it does, well, go with that change.
And talking about the other elements, you started with film and now it's digital. You mentioned a little bit about adjusting the camera. How does the technical side of photography fit in? Because it's a science as much as you can apply it to artistic endeavors.
It is. In the old days, we got the film that the manufacturer made, and it could look at the world in a certain way. It might see the world yellow, it might see the world blue, golden, green, etc., like that. It might be a very good film for dark places. It might be a very good film for light places, but we got what they gave us. Nowadays, we sit at the back of our camera and we turn the camera sensitivity up or down with the dark and light. We make the camera see the color of the scene either accurately or inaccurately, as we decide to do. We make the camera see the scene very sharply or with a little bit more fuzz, or in some cases with a great deal of fuzz. All of these are adjustments we can make in the lens, in the shutter of the camera, in the aperture of the camera, the little hole that lets the light in there. We can make the changes inside the camera to say, I want this to be a sunny day. I want this to be a cloudy day. I want this to be flash. I want it to be fluorescent light. We couldn't do that before. We had to do all sorts of things with glass filters and our fingers crossed. Nowadays, we can do it with some precision. In fact, people who sit and measure temperature of light or the intensity of light or things like that can do it with microscopic precision. Some people don't decide to do that. They turn the camera to automatic, and away they go. And I won't decry it. They sometimes get very, very good results from what they want. If it's a fast-moving circumstance, that may be the very best choice for them to do. Other people in the studio might, as I did myself, make minute adjustments here, there, and everywhere to come up with the end result. Say one of the little world pictures that I take of a model airfield with the aircraft there and the buildings in the sky. I know I'm going to be working on the computer with it later to put in the sky and to do all various things. But the rest of it is a case of sitting down there and working in point by point with the scene. And I might find myself spending a half an hour to 3/4 of an hour before I press the button for 1/25th of a second that captures the result that we wanted. It's a lot of work up to the capture in the thing. The guy who's chasing you in your rally car, he may have the exact opposite. He may have 1,000th of a second to catch you upside down heading over the hill, and then spend several hours sitting there making that picture look better than it was when you headed over the hill. So there's two different ways to do it. Sometimes you let it have its head. Sometimes you hold its head and make it do what you want it to do.
Like holding onto the tail of a tiger.
Exactly so, yes.
There are lots of opportunities. So that's deciding beforehand what you want and setting everything up, or taking the photo and dealing with it afterwards.
Exactly so. The very best and smartest way to deal with any photography, and I told this to the customers, is don't start at the start. Start at the end. Think about what you want that picture to be at the end. How big you want it to be, where you want it to go, whether you want it on a screen or paper or the wall. Decide what you want it to look like at the end, and then go back through stages of, well, if it's going to be dark, I've got to do this. If it's going to be colorful, I've got to do this. If I'm going to have to stand 300 feet away from the explosion, I'm going to have to do this. If I can get down within 3 feet of it or 30 centimeters of it, I'm going to have to do this. You work backwards from what you want in the end to how you can actually do it.
And that'll very quickly identify your opportunities and narrow down your range of choices so that you can actually come up with the correct technical solution to capture it.
There isn't one great correct technical solution for anything. There's different ways up the mountain for everybody taking photographs, but some ways are better than other ways. You could take an entire wedding with a handheld pocket camera the size of a lipstick. People have done that. You can also take that same wedding with a studio camera that takes an 8-inch by 12-inch picture every time it takes a picture. And it takes about 15 minutes to take that picture. Now, there's all the way in between the two theories is the way that people actually do things, but it is possible to do things by various means. In the end, the best way to do something is the thing that pleases the client. I think you could say whether the client's an art connoisseur looking at a wall or a commercial client looking at their product. If they're happy, then everybody's happy in that respect. But you learn how to get them happy by doing the best things.
And if you need to do it lots, then you work out the way that you can achieve that in a consistent and fast method.
You find that you've done something good, then think, how did I do that? How do I do it again? How do I get that? How do I hit that target with that particular camera again and again and again?
And that comes down to practice and familiarity?
Yes. You've learned what you've done wrong and you don't do it again. Or if you're like me, you learn what you've done wrong and you do it about 8 more times wrong.
That confirms that you know what is the way
That
not to do it.
confirms that I'm an idiot. That's a character issue. Oh, you're lucky if when something goes right, you're lucky if you know why it went right. And if it goes wrong, you're lucky if you know why it went wrong.
We've heard what it takes, Richard, to be a photographer. We'll have a break now. And after the break, we'll have a look at what it means. We've had a look at what it takes, Richard, to be a photographer. Now, let's have a look at what it means. Richard, what does it mean to you, your family, or the community that you're able to take photos as an amateur or professional?
Okay, let's start from the last part of the question. What does it mean to the community? The community gets what I take, whether it's the bride and groom, the cup manufacturer, the school yearbook, the newspaper. They get to see what happened, to see an illustration of something that happened. The beauty, the ugly, the cuppiness of the cup, call it what you like. They get the product at the end and they make whatever use of it they need. The bride and groom look at themselves, hopefully in 50 years' time, and think how wonderful they felt. And with a bit of luck, who knows, their children and grandchildren can look at those things. That would be a joyful thing to see. The community gets to see the cup it's going to buy for about 12 minutes and then throws the newspaper away. But if the cup got sold because of the photograph that I took, then that had a purpose and it did a very good thing. If I was an illustrative photographer in, say, a hospital or in a university or other research thing, the illustrative pictures that I take might actually go forth and become teaching objects and might become scientific objects that go for decades. That would be a wonderful achievement. I think it has happened to some people. Good for them. That's the community. They get what you've made and make use of it in what way they like. My family gets from my photography a record of all the family parties, all the people that existed, all the babies, all the grannies, all the things like that. They used to get them in paper form and standard 6x4 postcard print, or a bigger one if they were actually having a wedding or something like that. Nowadays, they get them as a file, electronic file, sent to them either over the internet or given to them on a USB stick. And they can have the pictures of their party, their anniversary, their wedding, their thingbobs, etc., like that, to supply the family entirely as a family history. And the joy of that is that in the digital era, it can go out to all members of the family for practically no money. You could give people literally thousands of pictures for $8, price of a USB stick. If you're sending them on the internet, they get them for nothing. They just go and put them in their own files. And the joy of it is, of course, when you've sent out all of these various pictures, they're stored in other areas. They're gone to different people. Not all of them can disappear. There will be a picture of Granny May somewhere in somebody's pictures. Even if all the other pictures of Granny May disappear, somebody will have one. That is a lesson I learned a long time ago. I looked at the paper pictures that my family kept in a shoebox, and I knew everybody in the family, here, there, and everywhere. The ones who were alive, the ones who were dead, various things. One day, my dad came up and he had an old photograph album. And again, I was expecting to see all the pictures that I'd seen before. There's a torn album. He says, "You have this, put it in the family records." When I flipped over one page, there was a man and a woman, and I only recognized the woman. It was my grandmother. "Who's the man, Dad?" He says, "Oh, that's your grandfather." And I suddenly realized I had never seen a picture of my grandfather in my entire life. This is at this point of the time, I'm 25 years old. I had never, ever seen that person. He died long before I was born. And that picture is the most amazing thing for me, is I now have a connection. I now know that face. I now know the nose and the shape of the chin and the eyes that are similar to my dad's and my own and my aunties and uncles. So what does photography do for the family? It sometimes actually makes the family. It records them, but it can make them as well. Now, what does the photography do for me? Well, provided me with a way to make money over the years. I do not think I've ever actually come into positive figures because I've spent more doing what I do than I've earned by what I've done. My last years in the camera trade earned me a proper wage, and that was the thing that you get. But amateur years, I spent more than I actually got in. But I got value for money because I got more and more knowledge as time went on. I was buying a good time knowledge. And since I've retained that knowledge, and like I say, the sun doesn't change. So once you learn how to deal with the sun, you can bring that knowledge forward for the future and use it in all your future endeavors. So there you go. Everybody gets something.
Everybody does get something out of photography. Personally, I take photos at parkrun, and I often tell people that the reason I do that is so that people can fill up their albums with some photos of them having fun doing something that they love to do. But also tell them that they also need to go to a studio and get some formal photos done. They need to get some photos done when they get dressed up and go out. They need to get some photos done when they're kicking around at home. And they need to get some photos done when they're at work, which is something that few people actually achieve.
That's a very good idea of the business of getting photographs in all divisions of your life. Let me add one more thing to it. When you get these photographs of the different divisions of your life, don't just get them as an image sitting on a telephone. Get them as actual pictures that you can hold in your hand, either in a book or in a frame. Get them in pictures that actually exist rather than virtually exist. Because at some stage of the game, you're going to drop your phone, or your phone's going to disappear or go into a river, and you're going to have all the trouble in the world of recovering the memories that have gone and vanished in that electronic image. Take your images, get them made into something that's actually concrete. Not concrete, paper.
Illustrations were there. People had the formal paintings that they did and they'd hang on the wall in castles and all those sorts of things. So the imagery has been an important part of life forever, really.
When you have a studio photograph taken of yourself, dressed well, with your family or just by yourself, when you have and it doesn't have to be a studio, by the way, it could be taken outdoors, etc. But when you have a deliberate illustration of yourself taken, made into a large enough size to see, you are as good as the Emperor Franz Joseph. You are better than Napoleon because he only had paintings. He didn't have a photographer. You are far better than Ramses III, who just had a stone statue carved out of him in the desert, and it's falling to pieces.
That's right. You've got far more detail, presence, all of those things.
You are as much a person as Napoleon, Ramses, or any of the others, or Franz Joseph, and you can prove it. You have a photograph of yourself, hopefully looking good.
That certainly in my photography is the aim, taking running photos. That's always the aim, is to show people at their best.
Indeed.
There's a lot of positive meaning in being a photographer, and particularly the product of being a photographer, the photo itself. We'll have a break now, and after the break, we'll have a look at how you do it. We've had a look at what it means that Richard can be a photographer, either amateur or professional. Now, let's have a look at how you do it. Richard, if someone wanted to become a photographer these days and occasionally become an employed photographer, how would they go about it?
The first stop for them would be to look at the prospectus of either a university course or a technical school course that deals with photography. They'll have photography courses that are very basic, the 101 type of thing, and they will have progressive things that go on for years that add to people's knowledge. Now, some of these are, I wouldn't call them terribly expensive, but they are an expense that has to be paid when you're getting learning on campus like that. You can also get learning through online sources. If you're the kind of person who can learn online by reading, you can go to a series of online courses that are available throughout the world from different organizations, and they will tell you very well how to do what you're going to be doing. Will Rogers said that some people can learn by reading, some people can learn by observing others, and some just have to pee on the electric fence themselves. So in the case of photography, you can watch others, be lectured to, read about the things that happen, or sometimes you just have to go buy a camera and hunt for the fence. In my case, that's pretty much what happened. I was given instruction in the newspaper. I was given an opportunity in the school for the yearbook. But for the rest of it, it was a case of pick up the device and read the instructions and go give it a try. For a person starting off right now, like I say, go look at the uni, go look at the TAFE, go look at the online courses. You'll have an amazing variety of things that could help you in that. Go to a camera club, and there's several around Perth and in the country areas. Go to a camera club and join up, hang out with the people, be sociable, find out what they do, and you'll find that nearly everybody wants to tell you how to do photography. They want to tell you how they do it and how you should do it. Well, take that with a grain of salt from everybody, but once the grain hopper's filled, go away and work with it. Now, you'll need a camera to do your pictures with. You don't need the most expensive one. You don't need the biggest one. You don't sometimes even need a new one. You can buy secondhand ones that work very well. It will either have a lens on the front or you'll add a lens. And then in the immortal words of one of my colleagues in the shop, go out and go mad. Go out and take as many pictures as you can of different subjects, learning as you go from the automatic feature of the camera until the automatic feature of the camera produces a picture that you think looks very good. Don't you just look at it, the little screen in the back of the camera. Take it back to your computer, put it on there, and look at it real hard. But let the camera guide you down by working with automatic features until it's giving you a good result. Then switch off one of the automatic features. If the camera's been doing automatic focus up till then, deliberately switch off the automatic focus and go out and do your own focusing. Do it right, do it wrong, do it different. Do it until you know why you've focused one thing and why you've left another thing fuzzy. Do it so that you can choose to have the person's face sharp and everything else fuzzy around them. Or in the case of really, really ugly people, everything around them sharp and their face fuzzy. That's a joke. I hope you're smiling. No, seriously. Work with your camera by turning off one automatic feature and work with it in the manual mode with that until you got that good again. Then switch off another automatic feature. If you've now mastered how to take your pictures with your manual focusing, switch off your automatic shutter and make your own decisions. And again, as I say, make the wrong decision, make the right decision, see what your decisions are doing as you do them. Oh, this is too blurry, or this is too sharp. Sometimes blurry is great. In your rally days, there were lots of times when a rally car went by and you could stop it dead sharp, but it didn't look like it was doing anything. It looked a little bit better with a bit of fuzz around it, a bit of dirt, a bit of flash as it went through.
Yeah, that's it. The ideal is to get the body sharp, but the wheels just slightly blurred so you know it's moving.
Yes, and if you can get the background a little bit blurred, you're working there as well. Gradually, you're going to work your way through your camera. You're going to find out what's the difference when you make it go yellow or blue or orange or magenta, how you should do that. If you're like me, you spend a long time getting the camera to see the same thing that you see. I had to go through my camera and my series of cameras and find out what it saw and then make it eventually see the same thing that I saw in my studio, that my eyes are doing. Now, it's not going to be the same thing you see. Everybody's eyes see color differently and other things like that. But the only thing I could do is show people what I see by making the camera do the same thing that I see. Gradually, you're going to get yourself down working with this device to the point where the files and the pictures that are coming off of it are pretty much to your taste. Of course, when you come to the computer, your taste can be changed by a number of ways. You can make the Photoshop programs and the other programs in your computer change the image in many, many, many ways. And there again is literally years of experiment and practice, having a look, trying what a manufacturer can put in there and seeing whether you like it, change it a bit, don't change it a bit, etc., like that. The one thing I would caution people against right now is making too much dependence upon artificial intelligence in the images they make. You will be dealing with artificial intelligence in some way, because many cameras now have features in it that are working to that. There's many features in the programs on your computer that are going to use small parts of artificial intelligence to change what you see. What they're doing is getting not artificial intelligence, but everybody else's intelligence, bringing it to you and modifying things from it. Okay, a little bit you can deal with. It'll happen and you don't know it's happened. But don't imagine that you're going to be the artist of the world by typing out a series of sentences and allowing the machinery to draw the picture for you. Draw that picture yourself.
And when you start taking photos yourself, do you actually see the difference between that and what AI currently generates?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, indeed.
They have a different look to them, don't they?
Very much so. The early AI was very, very crude. It's getting, when I say better, it's getting more realistic as it goes on. And of course, now it can be incorporated into motion, and it can produce motion from still images. It's starting to become rather horrible in some of the things it does with its images and the things that it does. You wouldn't deal with it on a moral basis in some cases from the things that it's doing, or the things that people are doing with it is the better way to say it. It can be quite horrible if it's used in the wrong way.
That's it. Use it for good.
Mm.
So thinking about what you've talked about there, you've got a pretty good rounding of how to go about dealing with the camera. Everybody's got a phone in their pocket. Do you suggest people start there?
People can certainly start taking pictures with a phone. It's in your pocket. You've got it all the time. And the new phones, in fact, phones for the last 3, 4, 5 years, have been able to take magnificent photographs with their sensors and their little lenses and things like that. The one awkward thing about a telephone when you're taking a picture with it is the fact that, I'll just lean back here and get mine, is that when you're taking a picture with a telephone, people are holding it up in front of them like a bar of soap and poking their finger at some part of the screen. It's not the ideal ergonomic for shooting the camera. The ergonomic of doing it is rather much like the old camera used to be. 2 hands on it, one on either side, or one on the side and one on the bottom, looking through the camera or looking at the screen and taking the picture. Maneuvering a bar of soap around, even though it's got a nice picture on the front of it, is more difficult to do in a controlled sense than doing it the other way. But people can certainly get wonderful results on a telephone. The awkward part, Paul, is the fact that they keep those results on the telephone. Of course, the results are probably kept on a computer someplace else, and it's a cloud-based communication. But they're keeping the results on the telephone and sometimes losing the telephone, losing the results. Or worse than that is they're coming up to you and saying, oh, let me show you this picture I took of the Bridge of Sighs or the Bridge of Grunts or the Bridge of Flatulence or whatever when I visited this city. And they will start flicking through the photographs. They'll go down, down, up, no, back, forth, down, up, down, till eventually you want to either cut their throat or your own. You're not fussy at a certain stage of the game, which you do. They wouldn't do it to you if their photographs were in an album. Nobody rushes you over to you at a cocktail party, comes out with a photographic album that's 10 by 12 inches big and starts flipping pages in front of you as you're trying to drink your cocktail. But they will do it with a damn phone. They'll come up and say, look at this, thrust it in your face and start flicking on the phone. Well, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to take your flicking phone away. But I do really think that while you get your picture on the phone, make it go someplace else and deal with it in another way.
Yes, the accessibility, actually, it's the finding of it that's the problem, isn't it?
Exactly so. I would like to help them find it, but I would probably use a nail gun to do it. Seriously, it's a modern phenomenon, and if a person thinks about it, they would do it in a different way, but they become used to doing what they do. So anyway, you were saying, can you take pictures with the phone? Yes, you can. Can you take award winners? Can you take wonderful art with the phone? Yes, you can. Can you take illustration with the phone? Again, yes, you could. A phone like this, the little tiny phones, make wonderful ways of taking tabletop photography. They actually have technical advantages over some of the bigger cameras. And if you could figure out some way to operate the wretched little thing in a more convenient way, without holding it up like a bar of soap and poking it with your finger, I think you could get a very good result out of it. The people who use iPads and other tablets like that also have an advantage. They have a very big screen in front of them and a small lens with a good sensor down at the bottom edge of the back of the thingbulb. They can take magnificent tabletop and product shots with their iPad. Again, unfortunately, they're dealing with an ergonomic disaster of holding the thing up and trying to poke with a thumb or a finger. But I've seen them used in a studio, held in a frame, and used as the primary camera for a studio shot, and it actually works. It's a surprise.
It's amazing, isn't it? There's a lot goes into getting them to work, but you don't have to worry about that because someone else has done that work.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Technically, they're a brilliant thing. You just have to figure out the ergonomics of using it, and then, as I say, take that image away from that device and put it on something else that can manage it better.
Well, thank you very much, Richard, for being on Forest.chat. It's been fascinating talking about all the different elements of photography that you've been involved in.
It's been a pleasure to be here. I hope that everybody who's listening, if they've not gone to sleep by now, I hope that everybody's listening will do as my old colleague used to say. They'll grab their camera, they'll go out and they'll go mad, and they'll take pictures of everything around them all the time. They're bound to get something good and they're bound to enjoy it later.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Richard. And all Forest.chat listeners wish you all the best with your future endeavours.
Thank you indeed.
You've been listening to Forest.chat, where we talk about individual endeavour in Western Australia, what it takes, what it means, and how you do it. I'm your host, Paul Vandermeer, and in today's episode, we talked with Richard Stein about being a photographer and sometimes an employed photographer. Remember, there are 4 ways to get involved with Forest.chat. Share the domain Forest.chat with your friends and family and people you meet. If you want to listen to the episodes, go to forest.chat/episodes. If you do something that other people find interesting, book an interview at forest.chat/interview. If you want to support a local business, book an advert at forest.chat/advert. I'm looking forward to joining you with our next guest. Until then, enjoy making it happen.